How do you get there? Do you get there by confrontation, violence?
Oh, is that the question you were asking?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. When you talk about a revolution, most people think violence, without realizing that the real content of any kind of revolutionary thrust lies in the principles and the goals that you're striving for, not in the way you reach them. On the other hand, because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reactions. If you are a black person and live in the black community all your life and walk out on the street every day seeing white policemen surrounding you, when I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, long before the situation in LA ever occurred, I was constantly stopped. No, the police didn't know who I was, but I was a black woman and I had a natural, and they, I suppose, thought that I might be a, quote, militant. And when you live under a situation like that constantly, and then you ask me, you know, whether I approve of violence. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all.
I was attracted to the Panthers because they were speaking the language I needed to speak at that moment in time, as was Malcolm X, as was Stokely Carmichael, i.e., a radical language, not about turning the other cheek. If somebody wants to knock me about on the basis of the color of my skin, I am not going to turn the other cheek. I've never been a turn the other cheek kind of person. I've always, you want to slap me? I'll whoop you down.
There are programs that are detrimental to the community that have been supported essentially by the city and put upon the people by the city with really very little understanding on the part of the board members. And there are programs such as the Senior Citizens Transportation Program, which we've mentioned, which we attempted to get pushed through this board or pushed through the city, in which the city rejects through its various bureaucratic rules and so forth and so on. It's very difficult to talk about anything so concrete as someone here being given some side money, but it is very easy to see that the Model Cities program, after 3 years of operation in the city of Oakland and in West Oakland in particular, has done essentially nothing for the people other than put in some streets and a few bus stations that will protect people from the rain partially.
Order. Today we have with us Kathleen Cleaver, who has just recently returned from Algeria. Her topic for today will be Black Revolution in the United States and will be...
In the history of the United States, have they ever called for the death penalty of a soldier in the U.S. Army? And they choose this black soldier to call the death penalty upon Brother Billy Dean Smith. At the same time, they let Lieutenant Calley parade around as some type of national hero. You see, he's a hero to the fascists. And the fascists are supporting him, and this is why he can carry on like this. Then we come to the key imprisoned population, the real base of this liberation struggle, and where you find the most profoundly dedicated forces in the liberation struggle in California in particular, and that is the convict population, the black convict population in these prisons. An example that brings that to your mind is the assassination of Brother George Jackson. But the trial of the other two, the Soledad brothers, is going on now in San Francisco. And you have to understand there is a definite interrelationship between the struggle of the revolutionaries, the forces within the prisons and without the prisons, within the military and without the military, within the political organizations and without the political organizations. And it all links up in the relationship of the underground. Because you see, there's a cycle in this revolutionary momentum, in this phase of development of the struggle at the present time. Whether you come from the prison or from the military or whether you come from the streets, you get the choice of going either to the military or to jail. Whether you come from the above ground and are forced underground or to jail, you see the same people moving around in this cycle of revolutionary action, especially in California. It's very clear in California. We're very concerned about
whether I approve of guns. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. some very, very good friends of mine were killed by bombs that were planted by racists. I remember from the time I was very small, I remember the sounds of bombs exploding across the street, our house shaking. I remember my father having to have guns at his disposal at all times because of the fact that at any moment we might expect to be attacked. The man who was at that time in complete control of the city government, his name was Bull Connor, would often get on the radio and make statements like, niggers have moved into a white neighborhood, we better expect some bloodshed tonight. And sure enough, there would be bloodshed. After the 4 young girls who lived, one of them lived next door to me. I was very good friends with the sister of another one. My sister was very good friends with all 3 of them. My mother taught one of them in her class. My mother, in fact, when the bombing occurred, one of the mothers of one of the young girls called my mother and said, can you take me down to the church to pick up Carol? We heard about the bombing, and I don't have my car. And they went down, and what did they find? They found limbs and heads strewn all over the place.
It was originated, and that the Black Panther Party got its birth and proceeded to develop the Afro-American liberation struggle. And it must be very clearly understood by everybody because apparently a great confusion has been caused by some so-called Panthers and some so-called revolutionaries during the past 2 years that the Black Panther Party had something to do with creating the Afro-American liberation struggle, when in fact it's the other way around. The Afro-American liberation struggle produced the Black Panther Party as a vehicle of its advancement, and as long as that instrument is advancing the struggle, then it's revolutionary and vanguard. And the minute it stops doing that, it's blocking, it's retarding. It is not a vanguard, it is not a relevant organization at the present time. The present structure, the present operation being carried out by these masqueraders, these phonies, these fakes, and they're very well known to the real Panthers, who are also well known to the real police, and who are also still being persecuted, tortured, arrested, killed, and shot throughout this country without your knowledge because of the complicity of the so-called Panther Party with these forces of oppression to make a compromise so that they get the heat off of them, you see?
About this whole question of violence that's been bandied around, very clear, should be made very clear that in the Black Panther Party and among all black people, it's not a question of violence, aggressive violence. This is what people mostly think of. It's a question of defending ourselves and our people against the violence that's being waged upon us and has been waged upon us for the past 400 years. A war of aggression is going on against black people, not only on the level of guns, but on the level of housing, on the level of education, on the level of food. On every level of the society, there's aggression, there's hostility, suppression, and violence directed against black people. The program of the Black Panther Party, originally started as the Black Panther Party for self-defense, is to move to defend and protect black people against this violence so that we can move to organize black people into a sufficient power to obtain our needs.
That way. What I would think it would be wise for minority leadership to do would be to seek out and to interpret and to press those points in which there is a common self-interest. Economics, political, housing, things of this sort. Now, I'd like to have her react to that.
All right. First of all, this was the policy of Dr. Martin Luther King. He asked these people to move in their own self-interest. They refused. And secondly, what you're asking is something that's human. And I don't think it's possible for this establishment to react to a human problem in a human way. It's impossible. In terms of self-interest.
You think it's that inhuman?
It is. It's obviously that inhuman to me if you look at its history and what it's doing now. If that is human, then we're something else. So I have to assume that they're non-human.
So this is why we say that the Black Panther Party as any type of revolutionary force is dead. The Black Panthers, however, are alive. The Black Panthers are in jails. The Black Panthers are running. The Black Panthers are starving. And we cannot sit here passively and look at these egomaniacs or whatever they want to call themselves go around and parade as if the Black Panther Party belongs to them. Because we know across this country there are hundreds, thousands of black people, poor people,